Hey, this is Mark, and I'm just going to simply read through some comments on the YouTube channel here and respond. So you ask and I'm going to answer. I've been reading through some recent comments, and one message keeps coming through loud and clear. Both partners are exhausted. The autistic partner feels confused, defensive, overwhelmed, constantly criticized. Then the neurotypical partner feels lonely, rejected, overburdened, and afraid to say the wrong thing. And then when both people are walking around with now depleted nervous systems, even a simple question can feel like an accusation. So I want to respond to several comments here. I'm looking at the comment section on my YouTube channel right now. I won't be able to address every situation, but many of these comments kind of represent questions that hundreds and probably thousands of people are quietly asking. So I'm going to start with one that captures the heart of the problem. One viewer wrote, and I'll keep these anonymous. He says, "We are both exhausted. I'm confused, defensive, and feel attacked. My wife is upset and walking on eggshells. We both want to fix it." Okay, well, the encouraging part there is you want to fix it. So that really matters. Most neurodiverse couples, one person's autistic, the other one is not, assume that they have to solve the content of their conflicts first, housework, parenting disagreements, lack of affection, forgotten responsibility, a misunderstood tone of voice, and so on. But when both nervous systems are exhausted, you can't reliably solve the content because your bodies are treating the conversation itself as a threat. The autistic partner may hear criticism even when the neurotypical partner is attempting to express pain, and then the neurotypical partner may hear indifference even when the autistic partner is attempting to prevent an emotional overload. So we have this disjointed view of the same problem. Now, before you repair the problem, you're going to need to repair the conditions under which you discuss the problem. So try saying, for example, "I want to solve this with you, but I don't think either of us can do that well right now. So why don't we think about taking a break and return at, I don't know, 7 o'clock or something like that." Now, that's not avoidance, as long as you actually return at 7 o'clock. A pause without a return feels like abandonment to the NT wife. Don't forget that, guys. A pause with return can feel like protection. So that's an important piece for the ASD husbands watching this. Another viewer asked about creating a system for household responsibilities. She wondered whether the system should include every task or merely general areas. Okay. Well, my answer there would be begin with ownership, not some enormous list. If you attempt to document every spoon, sock, appointment, grocery item, organizational system, that's going to require you to be like an administrative assistant. So instead, just divide responsibilities into, let's just come up with 3 categories. First, tasks one partner owns from the beginning to end. Second, we'll call it tasks that the other partner owns from beginning to end. And third, tasks that genuinely require both parties to participate. Okay, so ownership means noticing that the task needs to be done, remembering it, planning it, doing it, following up, and so on. So if someone says, "Well, just tell me what to do," that person may be offering labor, but the other partner is still carrying the executive function load. So whoever is going to do the task needs to be the one to remember doing the task. Okay. I would also say start with the reoccurring tasks that create the most conflict. Don't attempt to reorganize your entire marriage on a Sunday afternoon, okay? And if someone has recently begun forgetting familiar tasks more frequently, let's just don't automatically assume it's stubbornness, laziness, PDA, and so on. There's so many things that can enter the equation here. Stress, sleep problems, depression, medication effects, physical illness, burnout, ADHD, other conditions that affect memory, and so on. Several viewers asked some version of this question: why are the examples always about autistic husbands and neurotypical wives? What about autistic wives and neurotypical husbands? What if both partners are neurodivergent? Okay, well, that's a fair criticism right there. Autism doesn't belong to one gender. I would assume that everybody would know that, and neither does emotional exhaustion. Both ASD and NT can be exhausted. An autistic wife may withdraw, struggle with touch, need substantial recovery time. She may feel accused of making excuses when she finally begins understanding her nervous system. And then the neurotypical husband may feel lonely, confused, or shut out. The autistic partner may be the person carrying most of the executive function and emotional load, especially when the other partner has ADHD, trauma-related difficulties, depression, or another condition. The principles apply across gender combination, but the dynamics are not identical in every couple, so I understand that. I would largely say that the NT husband and the ASD wife, anything that I would talk about on these videos, whereas the ASD husband and NT wife would work with the NT husband and ASD wife. So anyway, moving forward, I will be including more examples involving the autistic woman and the neurotypical man. Okay, and per your inquiry, I'm going to also make sure that I include some videos on where both partners are autistic. Okay. And I might even want to go so far as to do when both partners are autistic and ADHD. So this isn't about making one group the villain and another group the victim. It's about accurately identifying what is happening in a particular relationship. Now, one autistic viewer made an extremely important observation. She said, just because I have a safe space to let my mask down doesn't mean I have permission to be mean. Exactly. Thank you. Home should be a safe place to unmask, but safe place doesn't mean consequent free place, okay? Your partner shouldn't receive the emotional wreckage left over after everyone else received your patience. Autism may explain irritability, shutdown, difficulty transitioning, sensory overload, reduced capacity for conversation, and so on, but it doesn't give anyone permission to intimidate, insult, control, threaten, or repeatedly use their partner as an emotional punching bag. But let's go so far as to say explanation and accountability must be able to occupy the same room. Now, what's a healthy version of unmasking? Okay, that might sound like I'm completely depleted right now. I need like 45 minutes without conversation, please. I mean, I care about you and I'll reconnect after I regulate. The unhealthy version sounds like being snappy, yelling, disappearing without explanation, and then demanding that the other person accept it because this is how my brain works. Okay. Your brain may explain the difficulty. It doesn't remove your responsibility to develop safer ways of handling that difficulty. Now, on the other hand, several autistic viewers that are members of the channel have been asking, what state is your nervous system in? And they have said that that can accidentally become an invitation to interrogation. I have said that in some videos. I have said, hey, your script is, what state is your nervous system in? But one viewer is saying, well, that has accidentally become an invitation to interrogation. I can see how that would happen. One commenter described coming home completely drained, admitted that he had nothing left, and then being met with rapid fire questions about exactly how he felt. Okay, that kind of defeats the purpose of the question. If your partner says, I'm in the red, that's not necessarily the beginning of a conversation. It may be the end of the conversation for now. A better exchange might sound like, I'm in the red right now. Are you okay with me taking 30 minutes or to an hour to regulate myself? I'll be back at 7. So that's not emotional desertion. There's no forensic investigation going on there, no surprise sequel entitled, since we're finally talking, here are 17 other things I want to discuss. So respecting someone's limited capacity doesn't mean your needs disappear. It means you arrange a more workable time to address them. Now, another viewer said, after work, the autistic partner goes quiet, aloof, and emotionally distant, leaving the spouse feeling lonely and rejected. Okay, well, that pain is real. Withdrawal may not be intended as rejection, but it can still be experienced as rejection. Intention matters, but impact also matters. So the solution is not to tell the lonely partner, well, stop taking it personally. That's nothing to do with you. The solution is to make the need for decompression predictable, while also reconnection is dependable. The solution is to make the need for decompression predictable while also making reconnection dependable. Let's try to remember that. For example, or when I come home, we will say, I need 30 minutes alone. After that, I'll come find you, I'll give you a hug, and spend 15 minutes checking in or so. Now, the autistic partner has recovery time, and the neurotypical partner doesn't have to wonder whether connection will ever happen that evening. He just came home, disappeared to his computer room. I'm not going to be able to see him the rest of the evening. Okay, we don't want that. So structure can turn what feels like rejection into something understandable and temporary. Now, another commenter said that people in general come home tired and need to unwind. And then she asked, why is that pathological? Okay, well, it's not pathological. There's a lot of people that are introverted and highly sensitive and have been traumatized and they're overworked and they're socially anxious anyway, and they just need some recovery time. Autistic people do not own exhaustion. Okay, that is definitely something everybody experiences. It has to do with intensity, frequency, neurological cost, functional impact. Autistic masking may require constant conscious monitoring of facial expression, conversational timing, body language, sensory input, and social expectations. But we should be careful not to turn every ordinary human behavior into a diagnostic sign. A diagnosis requires a comprehensive developmental picture, not a collection of frustrating habits observed by an unhappy spouse. Now, several people commented that they were almost positive their partner was autistic. Okay, well, recognizing a possible pattern can be useful. It may help you communicate more clearly and stop assigning malicious intent to every misunderstanding, but please don't turn a suspicion into a courtroom verdict. You can address observable behavior without diagnosing your partner. So instead of saying, well, you did this because you're autistic, try saying something along the lines of, when conversations become emotional, I notice that you stop responding and leave the room. Can we come up with a plan for taking breaks and returning to the conversation? Okay, wouldn't that be nice? That statement is concrete, respectful, actionable, with or without a diagnosis. Now, one viewer asked about a partner who refuses a label even though they may show signs of ADHD or autism. Okay, well, you can't force another adult to adopt an identity or pursue an evaluation. And I would say in most cases, pressure produces more defensiveness. Probably just dig their heels in even deeper. So we want to focus on function rather than the label. So you might say, I'm not asking you to agree with my theory about why this happens. I'm asking us to find a better system for remembering appointments, managing money, and discussing disagreements. A diagnosis can provide clarity, but a diagnosis doesn't perform the repair work. So two people can have all the correct labels and still maintain an unhealthy relationship. Another viewer asked about the difference between autism and narcissism. Oh boy, I hear that one a bunch. That question, I've answered that question many times in other videos, but the short answer is this. Some outward behaviors may look similar while the underlying reasons are very different. An autistic person may miss emotional cues, become rigid, especially under stress, speak bluntly, or appear self-focused during overload. Now, a narcissistic pattern generally involves a persistent need for superiority, entitlement, exploitation, image management, or control. But internet checklists are not sufficient for diagnosing either one. More importantly, you don't need to establish a diagnostic label before taking harmful behavior seriously. So, if someone repeatedly lies, humiliates you, intimidates you, controls you, refuses accountability, the immediate question is not which diagnosis explains this. The immediate question is, what do I need to remain safe and psychologically healthy? Now, a few comments described yelling, clenching fists, emotional abuse, coercive expectations around sex, and partners feeling afraid in their own homes. Okay. Well, those situations go beyond a communication style mismatch, that's for sure. Autism doesn't excuse intimidation. Neurological overload doesn't excuse threats. A diagnosis doesn't obligate a spouse to tolerate abuse. Okay. If you feel unsafe, then you need to prioritize safety. Couples communication techniques are not an adequate response to intimidation or violence. Now, another commenter said, the more I learn about myself, the less my husband wants to know. And the more he accuses me of excusing my behavior. Okay, well, learning about your neurology should help you become more responsible, not less responsible. There is an important difference between an excuse and an explanation. An excuse says, this is how I am, you just have to tolerate it, this is autism. An explanation